Hello everyone, Zeno here. Here to bring in part 2 of What If TMNT Were Teleport in Avatar. Link down description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 3, The Library. Hi everybody, sorry for the long wait. I've had quite a lot to do in regards to work and school, well enough of that. Let's get started. Remember, this is based of the 2003 TMNT series. The Library. Appa continued to soar through the skies with Aang sitting at the reins with Leo, Katara, Raph, Toph, Don, Sokka, and Mikey in the saddle. The Gongs spent the last few days telling the turtles about the war and some of their adventures, finding Aang in the iceberg, being chased by Zuko while traveling to the North Pole, Zhao's assault on the North Pole, meeting Toph, Aang now learning earthbending and waterbending. The turtles were quite impressed with the kids' accomplishments to say the least. Okay, so explain how you can see if you're blind. Leo asked. I don't see like you normal folk. Toph answered. I use earthbending to see, it's kinda like seeing with my feet. I feel the vibrations in the earth and I can use it to see everything around me. Like a form of subterranean sonar. Don deduced. Fascinating. Cool. Mikey added. But this avatar state sounds even cooler. It's not all that cool. Aang replied. What do you mean it's not cool? Raph questioned. You can create massive tidal waves, earthquakes, even freaking tornadoes. You're practically a kick-butt superhero. The avatar state is still dangerous. Aang said. On top of that, I can't use it all the time, it's when I'm most vulnerable. What do you mean? Leo asked. It's when I'm connected to my avatar spirit and all my past lives. If I'm killed in the avatar state, the cycle is broken and the avatar is gone forever. I get it, so it's like a method of last resort. Don guessed. Yeah, pretty much. Aang replied. On top of that, he can still accidentally hurt others around him, so it's not a power to use all the time. Katara added. It's still pretty awesome. Sokka said. You guys should see him, he laid waste to an entire armada of Fire Navy ships. This kid's a regular Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mikey said. Doctor Who and Mr. What? Aang asked. Should I be really honored, or really offended? Wait, you never heard of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Mikey questioned. Parallel world, remember Mikey? Don reminded. But it's one of the all-time classic monster movies. Mikey still whined. Monster movie. Aang, Katara, Sokka, and Toph asked at the same time. What's a movie? Katara asked. Mikey could not believe what he was hearing. You're kidding. Please tell me you're kidding. This world doesn't have movies. Please tell me you guys at least got TV. Or video games. Or comic books. Aang, Katara, and Sokka all looked at each other, not really understanding what Mikey was saying. No, should we? Sokka asked. Mikey's jaw was about to drop. Next thing you're gonna tell me is that you guys don't have hamburgers. What's a hamburger? Toph asked. Uh-oh. Leo, Don, and Raph grimaced, having a good idea where this is going. No hamburgers. Mikey exclaimed as he quickly stood up. Please for the love of Silver Sentry tell me you at least have hot dogs, or nachos, or pizza. Please tell me you have pizza. Mikey exclaimed as he shook Katara by the shoulders. No, never heard of any of that. I guess we don't have those. Katara said. Mikey just had a blank stare on his face as he slowly let her go. Mikey, you okay? Oh boy. Don breathed. Here we go. Raph said as he face-palmed. Leo began to count down. 3, 2, 1. The scream echoed throughout the sky. What kind of world is this? It's a madhouse. A madhouse. Mikey screamed as he shook Raph. Slap. Thanks. Mikey calmed down a bit. Don't mention it. Raph replied. Is he okay? Aang asked. He'll be fine, he's just being overly dramatic as usual. Leo replied. Meanwhile, back in the world of the turtles, the pyramid of the Nexus was still under the watch of the evil Foot. The Foot ninjas continued to guard from the bottom of the underground structure while at the top, the Shredder and his subordinates Karai, Hun, and Stockman were currently monitoring it. Stockman. Shredder spoke. How long must I wait? I assure you, I am nearly finished deciphering the ruins. Stockman replied from one of the pillars that decorated the top of the pyramid. I should have it set in a few hours or so. You had better, for your sake. Shredder replied, causing Stockman to gulp. Father. Karai said, getting his attention. He is working as fast as he can, the Nexus will be open to us soon. Not soon enough. Shredder replied. The turtles have already been transported to the world this Nexus point is connected to. I must find them immediately. What's the big deal, Master? Hun questioned. They're just 4 mutants, we have an army. Shredder immediately grabbed Hun by the throat and brought him close to his helmeted face. You of all people should know the significance of the turtles, Hun. Shredder exclaimed as he threw him down. Those reptiles have interfered in my plans for too long. I cannot afford to underestimate them again. Once we cross into the next world, our first task will be to eliminate those infernal terrapins once and for all. As Shredder made his declaration, Karai looked a bit towards the side, unsure of her father's methods. Back in the world of the Avatar, the heroes all sat down at a vacant field with dozens of holes in the ground. Aang sat in the middle of the field in a meditative position with a flute in his hands, while the others all stood behind a bit from him. Why are we in the middle of nowhere? Raph asked. There's a lot here actually. Toph pointed out. There's hundreds of little. Aang quickly shushed her before she could finish. I know you can see underground but don't ruin the surprise, just watch. Aang blew a note in the flute and a prairie dog popped out of one hole and squeaked the same note. Aang laughed and Mikey gave a bit of a smile himself while the others just looked at each other. Aang blew another note, resulting in another prairie dog emerging and squeaking. I'm putting an orchestra together. Orchestra huh? Sokka questioned. Well la-dee-da. Despite that, Aang blew more notes, causing a few more prairie dogs to pop up and squeak as well, resulting in Momo chasing all the prairie dogs that emerged. Katara and Mikey laughed a bit as well while Leo and Don gave amusing smiles, whereas Raph just sighed. This kid is the messiah for the whole world. Raph questioned Aang's childish behavior. He's 12 years old, Raph. Leo replied. Cut him some slack. Mikey quickly zoomed over to Aang. Mind if I take a crack at it? Sure, go ahead. Aang replied with a smile as he handed Mikey the flute. Mikey then immediately began to beatbox with the flute, resulting in some more prairie dogs coming up and squeaking in a pattern to go with Mikey's beatboxing. Aang, Katara, Leo, Don, even Toph seemed to take a liking to this, whereas Raph just shook his head with an amusing smile. However, every party has a killjoy, which came in the form of Sokka who plugged the flute Mikey was playing. This is great and all but don't we have more important things to do? We should be making plans. We did make plans. Toph said. We're all picking mini vacations. There's no time for vacations. Sokka replied. I'm learning the elements as fast as I can. Aang stated. I practice hard every day with Toph and Katara, I've been training my arrow off. Yeah, what's wrong with having a little fun in our downtime? Katara asked. Well, it seems we've found the killjoy of the group. Raph pointed out. I'm not a killjoy, that's Katara's job. Sokka pointed out, resulting in him getting smacked upside the head by a water whip. Ow. You were kinda asking for that. Don told him. I kinda have to agree with Sokka a bit. Leo said. We know next to nothing about the Fire Nation. We don't know where the Fire Lord lives, what the terrain is like, its military defense is nothing. We're gonna need a lot more information to win this war. I see your point, Aang said as he got up. But let's finish our mini vacations first. They won't take too long. Sounds fair, Leo replied. Hold on, before we go anywhere, you guys are gonna need disguises. Sokka said to the turtles. Aang took out a map and showed it to Katara. Your turn, Katara, where would you like to go on your mini vacation? Katara spotted something on the map that caught her interest. How about this Misty Palms oasis? Oasis huh? Mikey chimed in. Sign me up. Oh yeah, I've been there. Aang said. It's a pristine, natural, ice spring. And I usually don't use the word, pristine. It's one of nature's wonders. 5 minutes later, the group was standing in front of the oasis where the iceberg looked like nothing more than a puddle and the oasis seemed nothing more than a slum. Must have changed ownership, since I was here. Aang guessed as he laughed nervously. The sign fell down and broke as soon as he said that. When was that? In the late Jurassic? Raph questioned. The group walked through the slum oasis. Each of the turtles were wearing hooded robes to avoid being seen. Raph's was dark red, Leo's was dark blue, Don's was dark purple, and Mikey's was dark brown. They were about to walk into a hut, which had many loitering sandbenders around it. Most of the group walked in, but before Sokka could enter, one of the sandbenders spat in his path, resulting in him glaring at the smirking sandbender. Leo quickly pulled Sokka in to avoid making a scene. Once inside, it seemed like a run-down restaurant. "Well, this is quaint," Leo observed. They saw someone order a drink in which the chef took a couple of swords and cut up dozens of fruit, mixing it all with many juices before putting it in a cup and dropping a little umbrella. "I don't see anything wrong with having one of those fruity beverages while we plan our strategy," Sokka said as he quickly ran to the bar. "Mikey, you've just been replaced," Raph commented. The person who ordered the previous drink ended up bumping into Aang, accidentally spilling the juice on his robe. "No worries, I clean up easy," Aang assured as he used airbending to blow off the juice from his robe. The man gasped. "You're a living relic." "Thanks, I try," Aang replied. "That was a compliment," Mikey asked. "Normally calling someone a relic is an insult. That only applies to old people," Raph corrected. "An air nomad right in front of me," the man observed. Professor Zay, head of anthropology at Ba Sing Se University. He began to observe Aang's tattoos. "Tell me, which of the air temples do you hail from?" "The Southern Temple." "Oh, splendid," the professor said as he began to measure Aang's head. "Tell me, what was the primary agricultural product of your people?" Are fruit pies an agricultural product?" "No," Don said. "He means stuff like corn, grains, rice, homegrown stuff." "Oh, well, I wouldn't know. That figures," Raph said as he rolled his eyes. "So Professor, you're a well-traveled guy, obviously," Sokka observed. "Do you have a more current map? Ours seems to be a little dated." "Yeah, outdated," Mikey added. "Certainly," the professor replied. He showed a map to the group at the table. Sokka began to observe it but wasn't quite satisfied with what he saw. "What, no Fire Nation? Doesn't anyone have a good map of that place?" "Sokka, think about it," Leo told him. "If anyone had a map of the Fire Nation, don't you think they would have used it by now?" Sokka then face-palmed, realizing Leo was right. "You've made a lot of trips into the desert," Katara observed. "All in vain, I'm afraid," the professor said. "I've found lost civilizations all over the Earth Kingdom, but I haven't managed to find the crown jewel, Wan Shi Tong's library." "You spent years walking through the desert to find some guy's library?" Toph questioned. "Buddy, you really need to get yourself a hobby," Raph said. "This library is more valuable than gold, my friends," the professor replied. "It is said to contain a vast collection of knowledge. I can understand why you'd look for something like that. Knowledge is power," Don said as he was now interested. "Tell us more about this library." According to legend, it was built by the great knowledge spirit, Wan Shi Tong, with the help of his foxy knowledge seekers. Sokka had a smile on his face. "Oh, so this spirit has attractive assistants, huh? Get me a library card to that place," Mikey said with a wide smile. "I think he means they look like actual foxes, guys," Katara stated. "You're all right, handsome little creatures," the professor continued. "Wan Shi Tong and his knowledge seekers collected books from all over the world and put them on display for all of humanity to see, so that we may better ourselves." Leo began to think. If this place has books collected from the entire planet, maybe they have something from the Fire Nation, maybe a map or something of their history. "I wouldn't know," the professor replied, "but if such a thing exists, it's in Wan Shi Tong's library." "Well, looks we have a destination in mind," Don observed. "Yep," Sokka confirmed. "Aang, I do believe it's my turn. I want to spend my vacation at the library," Sokka announced dramatically. "Did you have to be so dramatic?" Raph questioned. Hey, what about me?" Toph asked. "When do I get to pick? You gotta work here a little longer to qualify for vacation time," Sokka told her, resulting in Toph pouting with her arms crossed. "Of course there's the matter of finding it," the professor said. "I've made several trips into the Sing Wong Desert, and almost died each time. I'm afraid that desert's impossible to cross." "Impossible is our middle name," Mikey stated. "Just ask our sky bison right outside." "A sky bison?" the professor asked with a wide smile. "You actually have one?" Back outside, Appa growled at a group of sandbenders that were observing him rather closely. Sandbender's shoe, the professor exclaimed as he and everyone else all ran up to it. Away from the bison. You heard him, get lost ya vultures. Raph stated as the sandbenders begrudgingly walked away and got back in their boats, which they then propelled away into the desert. Everyone gave suspicious looks at the sandbenders as they rode away. I don't like the look of those guys. Don observed. That makes two of us. Leo replied. We better keep an eye out while we're out here. The large group all loaded up on Appa and began to take flight over the treacherous desert. Raph, Katara, Toph, Mikey, Don, and Sokka all laid back in the saddle while Aang, Leo, and the professor all sat on top of Appa's head. The professor soon began to directly talk to Appa. Tell me, Sky Bison, are you the last of your breed? The professor asked while Appa gave a groan in response. Oh delightful. I only wish I spoke his tongue. Oh the stories this beast could tell. The professor stroked Appa's fur while Momo ran up and chirped at him. SSHH chatty monkey. Leo and Aang took a look at the picture of the library. It shouldn't be too hard to find a place like this out here. Aang said. A library that big is sure to stick out like a sore thumb. Leo observed. From there the entire group spent what seemed like hours of searching the endless desert, with no sign of the library. Ah, Toph groaned. Does this place even exist? Some say it doesn't, the professor said nonchalantly. And you didn't mention this before. The angry Raph questioned. Toph, if we die out here, remind me to kick that guy's ass in the afterlife. Will do. Even more time passed, and to say the company was bored would be an understatement. Mikey at this point was attempting to play I Spy to alleviate the boredom. I spy something. Brown. Mikey said. Is it sand? Don groaned. Like the last 20 times. There it is. Toph announced, pointing in a certain direction, causing Leo, Aang, Don, Katara, Sokka, and Mikey to look in the direction she was pointing. They all spotted nothing and glared at Toph. That's what it'll sound like when one of you spots it. She's blind, idiots. Raph cracked while he and Toph fist bumped and they both snickered. They still searched and found no luck at all. It shouldn't be this hard to spot a giant ornate building from the air. Katara said. Maybe this place really doesn't exist. Don guessed. And this may be just a waste of our time. Leo said. Sokka looked through the telescope and spotted something that caught his attention. Down there, he said, getting everyone's attention. What's that? The group soared down on Appa before jumping off at the base of what appeared to be a small tower sticking out of the sand. Is this it? Mikey asked. No, it's not what we're looking for. The building in this drawing is enormous. Katara replied. They noticed a faint sparkle in the distance and looked in that direction. It came from a fox carrying a scroll in its mouth. A fox? Don questioned. What's a fox all the way doing out here? The fox then ran across the sand and straight up the tower, much to their surprise. That's no ordinary fox, Leo observed as it dove into the window at the top of the tower. I think that was one of the knowledge seekers. The professor guessed. We must be close to the library. Leo, Aang, Mikey, Katara, Raph, Sokka, and Don all looked at the picture and they realized it. No, this is the library. Sokka revealed as the tower looked identical to the top of the building in the drawing. It's completely buried. Oh, well isn't that just perfect? Raph said sarcastically. Talk about a waste of time. The library is buried, the professor yelled. My life's ambition is now full of sand. He fell to his knees before taking out a small shovel. Well, time to start excavating. He then began to dig. This guy is a few books short of a full library. Mikey whispered to Don, who nodded in agreement. Toph put her hand to the base of the tower and immediately felt the inside of it. Actually, that won't be necessary. The inside seems to be completely intact, and it's huge. How's that possible with all this sand over it? Don questioned. Magic library, remember? Raph reminded. The knowledge seeker went in through the window. I say we go up and see what it's like inside. Leo announced. Pass, Mikey said. Yeah, I'm staying out here too. Toph said. You guys got something against books? Katara asked. I'm not into libraries. Capital B, for boring. Mikey answered. And I've held books before, and I gotta tell ya, they don't exactly do it for me. Toph revealed. Katara then remembered, once again, that Toph was blind. Oh right, sorry. But hey, if there's a comic book section in there, let me know. Mikey said while Raph, Don, and Leo rolled their eyes. Sokka then tied a long rope to his boomerang and threw it up to the window like a makeshift grappling hook and started climbing. Aang patted Appa's head while near Toph and Mikey. Don't worry buddy. Aang consoled his beloved bison. I'm not making you go underground ever again. You can stay out here with Toph and Mikey. Toph and Mikey just stood next to the large bison. Yo. Mikey greeted to the bison. What's up? Toph added. The remainder of the group then began to climb down the rope and into the library. Leo was first, followed by the professor, then Don, next was Sokka, then Raph, then Aang and Katara was last, with Momo flying next to them. Once inside, to say the library was fancy would be an understatement. Whoa. Don breathed. Man, Toph wasn't kidding. Raph observed. This place is huge. I'm sure Master Splinter would love this place. Leo said. Oh, it's breathtaking. The professor observed. The spirit spared no expense in designing this place. You can say that again. Don agreed. I mean, just look at these beautiful buttresses. The professor pointed out, causing Aang and Sokka to snicker while Katara, Leo, Raph, and Don just rolled their eyes at their immaturity. What's funny? The professor asked. Don't worry, they're just being idiots. Raph told the professor, earning slight glares from Aang and Sokka. The group quickly sat down on the floor and began to observe more of the massive library. My word, the professor exclaimed as he looked at an illustration of a large owl. The exquisite, mosaic handiwork of the tile-rendered, avian symbol. The kids looked to the professor, as they didn't have a clue what he was saying. He means, nice owl. Don translated. They heard the sound of wings flapping from deep in the library. Someone's coming, hide. Leo stated as the group quickly ran and hid themselves. Aang, Momo, and the professor hid behind one pillar while Leo hid underneath the small rise from the floor next to them. Katara and Sokka hid behind another pillar while Raph and Don ducked under the small rise next to that pillar. They slightly looked out to see a large owl emerge from the shadows. It walked across the bridge to the center where it saw the rope that hung down from the window. Raph placed a hand on the handle of one of his sei, preparing for the worst. The owl turned its head 270 degrees, looking in the direction of the group. I know you're back there. It spoke. Yeah, that's not creepy or anything. Don whispered. The professor walked out into the open and introduced himself to the owl. Hello. I'm Professor Zay, head of anthropology at Ba Sing Se University. You should leave the way you came. The owl advised. Unless you want to become a stuffed head of anthropology. The owl gestured to 3 stuffed animal heads that decorated a pillar, resulting in the professor gulping and holding his throat. The rest of the group walked out. Are you the spirit who brought this library to the physical world? Sokka asked. Indeed. I am Wan Shi Tong, he who knows 10,000 things. And most of you are obviously humans, which by the way, are no longer permitted in my study. What do you have against humans? Aang asked. Wan Shi Tong scoffed. Humans only bother learning things to get the edge on other humans. Like that firebender who came to this place a few years ago, looking to destroy his enemies. So, who are you trying to destroy? He looked at Sokka. What? Sokka asked, trying to act innocent. No destroying. We're not into that. Then why have you come here? Knowledge for knowledge's sake. Leo, Raph, and Don all face-palmed at that. If you are going to lie to an all-knowing spirit being, you should at least put some effort into it. Before Sokka could say anything else, Leo pulled him out of the way and stepped up. Sorry about that, he's nervous when it comes to the supernatural. Leo began. I can understand your weariness of humans, I've seen it many times with my own eyes. Leo removed his hood, revealing his turtle face. Don and Mikey followed suit as well. Zay looked in surprise while Aang, Katara, and Sokka had questionable looks as to what they could gain from it. Wan Shi Tong didn't look too surprised. I suspected that you weren't human, yet you are not spirits either. What are you exactly? We're beings from a different dimension. Leo started. The only reason we're here is to get information on the Fire Nation and we know nothing about it, we were hoping you would have something. The most we're looking for is a map, that's all. Sokka was about to say something, but Raph quickly nudged him, giving him a look that silently said, "Shut up." Leo wasn't lying, but he did leave out a few details for obvious reasons. "You said you couldn't trust humans." Leo continued. "Well, these three right here are only kids, it's not like they're soldiers or anything, besides one of them is the Avatar, and if I recall, happens to be the great bridge between your world and this one." Don and Raph nudged Aang a bit and he slightly stumbled next to Leo. He gave a nervous laugh. "We will not abuse the knowledge in your library, good spirit. You have my word." Wan Shi Tong stood upright. Very well, I'll let you peruse my vast collection, on one condition. To prove your worth as scholars, you have to contribute some worthwhile knowledge." The professor presented a large text. "Please accept this tome, as a donation to your library. First edition, very nice." Wan Shi Tong waved his wing over the book before it disappeared. Leo walked up with a scroll and opened it. It showed a group of ninjas practicing a ninjutsu technique. "This is an ancient marital art of our world, may you find it knowledgeable, great spirit. A martial art from another world, fascinating." Wan Shi Tong took this scroll as well. Katara was next. "I have an authentic waterbending scroll. Ooh, these illustrations are quite stylish." Wan Shi Tong accepted Katara's offer. Don walked up right after and presented blueprints of the battle shell. "These are schematics from a vehicle I constructed myself, I guarantee you won't find anything like this." "How inventive, I accept." Wan Shi Tong took the blueprints. Aang tried to think of something. "Oh, I know." He pulled out a wanted poster of himself. "I suppose that counts." Wan Shi Tong took the poster. Raph walked up next before pulling out a magazine. "Maybe you can start a new collection of otherworld stuff." Well, it's certainly colorful." Wan Shi Tong took the magazine. Sokka was last. "Oh great spirit, check this out." He whipped out a tiny string before tying it in a 5-pronged knot. "Ta-da!" Wan Shi Tong gave a blank stare. "It's a special knot. That counts as knowledge." "You're not very bright, are you?" Wan Shi Tong guessed. "No, he's not," Raph added, resulting in Sokka scowling. Regardless, Wan Shi Tong took the knot. "Enjoy the library." The owl then flew down into his library while most of the group began their search. "Bright enough to fool you." Sokka scowled before getting smacked on the back of the head by a certain red-clad turtle. "Don't say that out loud, moron," Raph stated before grabbing Sokka by the arm. "Come on." He then dragged him into the library after the others. Meanwhile, back outside, Mikey and Toph sat on the sand next to Appa. It was a pretty awkward silence between the small group. "So, you guys like flying?" Toph asked. Appa gave a small groan while scratching his ears. "Yep, I like the feeling on being on top of the world, living for a few years in the sewers, you're going to wanna get to the top of something. I rooftop run all the time with my bros back home." Mikey answered. "Of course I'm more comfortable on the ground where I can see." Toph said. "Have I mentioned how cool your seismic sense is?" Mikey asked. "Seismic sense?" Toph asked. "Well, it's basically your superpower." Mikey explained. "And every cool power needs a cool name." Toph gave a slight grin. "I like it. But all this sand is so loose and shifty, it makes everything look all fuzzy." Appa gave a slight groan. "Not that there's anything wrong with fuzzy, big guy," Mikey quickly said. Back in the library, the group was looking through the many books and scrolls on display. Don obviously took a huge liking to this place as he surfed through a scroll, as did Aang and Katara. Aang looked at a picture that caught his interest. "Hey Raph, look at these weird lion turtle things." He showed the picture of Raph. "You guys could be distant cousins." Raph looked at the picture. "Somehow, I doubt that. And I've seen plenty weirder." Katara walked up to the young avatar. "Aang, did you know in a past life, you were left-handed?" "I always knew I was special." "Well, you were the avatar, doesn't that already count as special?" Don asked. "Guys, let's try and remember why we're here," Leo said. "Let's find a map and get out." "Why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Aang asked. "Wan Shi Tong let us look at all his stuff. I don't trust him, he was very hostile towards us, and I've got a feeling that me also be a bit paranoid." Leo added. "I don't like the guy either." Raph added. "He seems all kinds of arrogant." Sokka meanwhile took a few scrolls from the shelves and put them in his bag. He soon spotted a burnt piece of paper in a glass case. Don noticed this as well and walked up with him. "What does it say?" Don asked. "The darkest day in Fire Nation history." Sokka read. "It's got a date at the top, but it doesn't say anything else. Generally when something is referred to as the darkest day, it usually means something bad." Don said. "Bad for them maybe, but good for us." Sokka lifted the glass with his hatchet and took out the parchment and began running in a certain direction when the others arrived. "Sokka, where are you going?" Aang asked. "I want to know what happened to the Fire Nation on their darkest day, this could be promising," Sokka said before running off. Raph gave an amused smile. "I think the idiot may actually be onto something. Let's go, come on," Leo said as he, Aang, Katara, Raph, Don, and the professor, along with Momo, all ran after him. The group ran through the library before coming to a section that had the Japanese symbol for fire over the door with dragon statues. The information on the Fire Nation should be right up here. They walked into the chamber and found themselves completely shocked as all that filled the room were piles of black dust and soot. It wasn't hard to deduce what happened. Firebenders. Aang realized. They destroyed everything having to do with the Fire Nation. Katara said. "How much do you wanna bet this is the reason Wan Shi Tong sunk his library?" Leo guessed. "I wouldn't blame him, someone tried to destroy something of mine, and I'd probably hide the rest." Don said. "This is so unfair," Sokka exclaimed. "Just when I think I'm one step ahead of the Fire Nation, it turns out they beat us here a long time ago. This war is 100 years old." Raph reminded. "I guess we can always capture a high-ranking Fire Nation officer and beat the information out of him." He punched his left palm with his right fist. Aang gave a questionable look. "Do you always go for the violent way? You'd be surprised how much it works." Raph told him with his arms crossed. "I need to know what happened on the darkest day," Sokka still said. The group heard a small whine and looked behind to see a fox looking at them. "One of the knowledge seekers," Don guessed. "Maybe you can help us." Leo spoke to the fox. "Do you know where we can find any information?" The fox nodded and ran off in a certain direction. "Come on guys, it wants to follow." The group ran after the fox as it led them through the library. It soon led them to a large, circular door. The fox ran into a hole in the wall. 2 minutes later, the door opened and the group walked into a large chamber with a dome roof and a pedestal in the center of the floor. The fox pushed on a lever by the pedestal, causing the room to change. The ceiling shifted into one filled with rotating stars. "It's a planetarium," Don realized. "This is truly a mechanical wonder." The professor marveled. "A planetarium?" Katara asked. "A chamber that shows what the sky looked like at a certain date and time in the past," Leo explained as the planetarium shifted to a daytime setting. "This is beautiful, but how is it helpful?" Sokka asked. Raph looked at the pedestal. "A little help here, I don't read Chinese." The rest of the group joined him. "Maybe these symbols represent dates and times," Katara speculated. "Sokka, try the date from the parchment you took." Sokka immediately shushed his sister. "SSHH, Katara. Not in front of the fox, he's with the owl," Sokka whispered, resulting in the fox whining. "It's a fox, ponytail," Raph reminded. "Guys, focus," Leo reminded. "Sokka, put in the date." Sokka turned the dials to the date on the parchment and pushed down on the lever, causing the room to shift and turn around the entire group. "Wow," Aang marveled. "I gotta hand it to you, Sokka. You picked the best mini vacation, for sure. You clearly haven't gotten out much then, kid," Raph told Aang. The room finally stopped shifting and it appeared that the sun was no longer visible. "Hey wait, what happened to the sun?" Katara asked. "Great, you must have broken it," Aang said. Don looked closer and the purple-clad turtle realized it. "No, it's not broken. Look, the sun is behind the moon, it's a solar eclipse." "I get it no," Sokka stated as he began to shake Aang. "It's literally the darkest day in Fire Nation history. Something awful happened on that day, I don't know what, but I do know why. Firebenders lose their bending during a solar eclipse." "Wait, how does an eclipse cause someone to lose their bending?" Leo asked. "Well, the same kind of thing happened before," Katara explained. "There was a lunar eclipse at the North Pole and waterbenders lost their bending there." "I think I get it," Don theorized. The sun is the largest source of fire in the solar system, so maybe it acts as a power source for firebenders. So with the sun blocked out, Leo began. The firebenders are ripe for a good old butt kicking. Raph finished with a grin on his face. The fox that showed them the chamber gave a whining sound. Fine, you earned it, Sokka said to the fox before tossing him a piece of food. The group gathered together. We gotta get this information to the Earth King at Ba Sing Se. Sokka began. We'll wait for the next eclipse and then we'll invade the Fire Nation when they're totally helpless. The Fire Lord is going down. Sokka, Don pointed behind them as a shadow loomed over them. Mortals are so predictable, and such terrible liars. Wan Shi Tong said. Ah shell. Raph cussed, realizing they were busted. You betrayed my trust, Wan Shi Tong exclaimed. From the beginning, you intended to misuse this knowledge for evil purposes. We're the evil ones, Raph angrily questioned. You saw what those hotheads did to your library. You should be thanking us for wanting to beat some sense into them. The Fire Nation is out of control, we need this information. Don added. You think you're the first person to believe their war was justified? Wan Shi Tong questioned. Countless others have come here before you, seeking weapons, or weaknesses, or battle strategies. We had no choice. Aang tried to reason with the owl spirit. Please, we're just desperate to protect the people we love. Leo stood in front of the avatar. Don't bother trying to reason with him, Aang, he won't listen to anything we have to say, isn't that right? He questioned to the owl. That is correct, Wan Shi Tong confirmed. And now, I am going to protect what I love. He outstretched his wings and began to flap them, creating a vortex, causing the whole building to shift and rumble. What the shell are you doing? Don questioned. I'm taking my knowledge back. No one will ever abuse it again, the owl declared. He's sinking the building, Katara realized as sand began to pour into the chamber. We've got to get out of here. I'm afraid I can't allow that. You already know too much, Wan Shi Tong said as he stretched his neck and thrusted his beak forward, which the group avoided by separating. Raph took out a few smoke pellets and threw it into the owl's face, temporarily blinding him. Time to go, Leo announced as the group began to run as fast as they could. Wan Shi Tong shook the smoke from his face and cleared his eyes before pursuing them. Back outside, Appa was sleeping while Toph and Mikey were sleeping on his side. The tower began to shift, waking Appa up and causing him to roar. 10 more minutes, Master Splinter, Mikey groaned, as he was still asleep. I already told you, I don't want to snuggle, Toph groaned as well. Appa quickly stood up, causing both the orange-clad turtle and the blind bandit to fall and wake up. They saw the building beginning to descend in the ground. The library's sinking, Mikey realized. The library's sinking, Toph questioned before she felt it as well. The library's sinking. Toph quickly ran to the tower and pressed her fists against it, to try and use her earthbending to keep it up. She sunk a bit in the sand before loosing her grip. Toph dug her hand in the sand and twisted, causing it to solidify, giving her solid ground to stand on. She pressed her fists against it again and was able to slow it down quite a lot. Can you hold it up? Mikey asked. I hope so, Toph grunted as she tried to keep it up. Back inside, Leo, Aang, Don, Katara, Raph, Sokka, Momo, and the professor all ran through the library. Raph looked back. Guys, Psycho Owl Spirit right behind us, Raph exclaimed as he saw Wan Shi Tong flying towards them at high speeds. The group picked up the pace, running faster. Wan Shi Tong's extended wings began to tear through the bookshelves, destroying many of the books in the process. The professor saw this with horror. Ah! He screamed. Great knowledge spirit, I beg you, do not destroy your vast collection of priceless tomes. He begged as the owl flew closer to him. Aang turned around and used airbending to pull the professor back before Wan Shi Tong could get to him. Leo used this and ran at fast speeds before giving a fierce kick to the side of the owl's head, knocking him off the bridge. Aang followed through with a powerful air gust, blasting the owl to the wall, causing him to fall down into the abyss below. That won't stop him, Leo said as he, Aang, and the professor caught up with the rest of the group. We've got to get back to the surface, Aang exclaimed as the group began to run, but Sokka stopped and looked back the way they came. Hey, you frozen back there? Raph questioned as the group stopped. Sokka, let's go, Katara exclaimed. But we still don't know when the next eclipse is gonna happen. Sokka said. Don't be stupid, we'll find out later. Katara told him. No, Sokka's right, Leo said. We have no way of knowing when the next one is, and if we leave now, we never will. In case you haven't noticed bro, the library is sinking. Raph reminded. And I don't wanna be trapped here for all eternity. We don't have a choice Raph. Leo said. Alright everyone listen up. Dawn, you and Aang go with Sokka back to the planetarium to find out the next eclipse is. Katara, take the professor and Momo and get out of here. Raph, you're with me, we'll hold off Wan Shi Tong till we're all set. Got it. Aang, Dawn, Raph, and even Katara all said. Whoa, hold on. Sokka spoke out loud. Who put you in charge? I'm the leader here. We don't have time to argue Sokka. Do what I say, Leo yelled. Yes, sir. The spooked Sokka nodded his head as he spoke in a squeaky tone. With that, the group split up. Katara ran with Momo and the professor towards the exit, while Dawn, Aang, and Sokka ran back to the planetarium just as Wan Shi Tong flew back up and was about to fly after the group heading back to the planetarium, but Leo and Raph quickly appeared in front of him, leaping high and both kicked him in the face as he fell back. Leo drew his katanas while Raph drew his sei, standing in the owl spirit's path, both giving him defiant looks. You're gonna have to go through us first, bird boy. Raph challenged. As you wish. Wan Shi Tong accepted as he charged forward, while Leo and Raph both gave battle cries, charging towards him as well. Back outside, Toph struggled with all her might to keep the library from sinking completely. Appa and Mikey both noticed something from behind. Toph, we got company. Mikey said. What is it now? Toph questioned. These were the boats of the group of raiders that the group recently encountered back at the oasis. Sandbenders. Mikey exclaimed. Yeah, as if things weren't bad enough. 3 sandbender boats began to circle Appa before the sandbenders got off. Toph, you keep the library up, I'll handle these guys. Mikey announced as he leapt and kicked a sandbender in the head, sending him flying. Mikey pulled out his nunchucks and readied for battle as the sandbenders readied themselves as well. Back in the library, Aang, Dawn, and Sokka made it back to the planetarium. Why are we doing this? Aang asked as they got to the podium at the center of the planetarium. Because if this calendar can tell us about eclipses in the past, then maybe it can project when the next one will be. Sokka deduced. We can't possibly check every date. Aang exclaimed. We don't have to. Dawn told him. We just need to check every date before Sozin's comet arrives, because after that, it won't matter when the next eclipse will show up. Game over. The 3 then searched all the upcoming dates continuously, over and over. Dawn and Sokka would try the dates, while Aang pulled the lever so they can see the sun and moon's positions at that date. So far they had found nothing, a few close calls, but no such luck. It looked like it was hopeless for the heroes. Come on eclipse. Aang hopped as he pulled the lever. The room shifted again, this time, the moon landed in front of the sun. They had found it. We found it. The solar eclipse. Dawn announced. And it's just a few months away. Sokka observed as he wrote down the date. Got it. Then let's make like piñatas and beat it. Dawn exclaimed as the group ran out of the library. Back outside, Mikey continued to try and fight off the sandbenders. He flailed his nunchucks in the face of one before quickly jumping and kicking another in the abs. 2 of them sent plums of sand his way and hit him, causing him to fly back. He quickly got up as the sandbenders threw many lassos around Appa, tying him down. Hands off the bison, Tusken Raider wannabes. Mikey shouted as he punched a sandbender and knocked another away with his nunchucks. Toph, how's it going over there? Mikey questioned as he slammed his weapon into the gut of another sandbender. I can't hold it forever. Toph exclaimed. 4 sandbenders surrounded Mikey and motioned their hands. He was sunk into the sand before they thrusted forward and sent Mikey flying far away. The remaining sandbenders finished restraining Appa, who struggled in the ropes. Don't make me put this down. Toph said as she briefly let go of the library, sending plumes of sand towards the sandbenders, but they missed and she was forced to hold the library again, to keep it from sinking any further. Mikey got back up to see the sandbenders hook the restrained Appa to their sandboats. No, 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 no. Mikey shouted as he ran back towards the action. The The boats began to fly away. Mikey tried to run to them. He threw a shuriken, which missed one of the ropes but cut the face of one of the sandbenders, cutting his mask to reveal a dark-haired young man. He held his right cheek as blood ran down from the cut. Mikey wasn't able to catch up to them on time as the sandbenders got away. He stood there with a look of despair on his face. Mikey. Toph tried but he didn't give an answer, indicating that it was too late. I'm sorry Appa. Back in the library, Wan Shi Tong was sent flying through many bookshelves. He quickly got up to see the armed Leo and Raph both glaring at him and charging forward again. He lunged his beak forward and into the ground, forcing the two ninja turtles to split in two directions. Raph jumped up to a pillar and launched downward from it and kneed Wan Shi Tong in the face, sending him tumbling to Leo, who charged and twirled straight for him, slashing the owl many times in the chest, causing it to stumble to the ground. Leo and Raph stood back together to see Wan Shi Tong get up once again. He glared once more before they ran forward again. This time he opened his wings and sent a powerful gust of wind towards them, sending both the turtles flying. Katara and Momo made it to the bridge they first got to and saw the rope leading back up to the surface. She looked to see Leo and Raph both slide on the right side, stopping just in front of the rope. Are you guys okay? She asked as they both got up. Well, besides fighting for our lives against a crazy spirit in a sinking library, we're just fine. Raph replied sarcastically. Wan Shi Tong began to approach them like a fierce predator. Leo and Raph took combat stances with their weapons while Katara took her own waterbending stance in between the turtles, standing with them. Your waterbending won't do you much good here. Wan Shi Tong said. I've northern water style, southern water style, even foggy swamp style. Before he could react, Don come in from above and swung his bow staff hard against the back of Wan Shi Tong's head and sent him tumbling towards the three. Leo and Raph then jumped towards the tumbling owl and slammed both their feet against his head, sending him flying and falling down off the bride. That's called Ninja Turtle style. Learn it. Don called down the pit. Aang and Sokka caught up with the group. We've got the eclipse date. Sokka shouted. Then it's time to go. Leo declared as they all began to climb the rope. As they did, they saw the professor sitting in between bookshelves with a sea of books and scrolls surrounding. Professor, we gotta go. Don called. I'm not leaving, I can't. The professor called back. Are you crazy? Raph questioned. I spent too long searching for this place, there's not another collection like this on Earth. I could spend an eternity in here. The professor said, as though he were at peace. Just go. Katara told the group, but soon felt a tug on the rope. Wan Shi Tong was pulling them down. Aang however responded by creating a massive air sphere that surrounded him, Leo, Katara, Don, Raph, Momo, and Sokka, and they soared straight up with Wan Shi Tong close behind them. They all flew through the hole of the tower and outside. The air sphere ceased and they all fell and tumbled on the ground. Mikey saw they were back. Toph, they're here. Let it go now. Once Mikey gave her the signal, Toph let go of the library, allowing it to sink completely into the ground, leaving only a large crater. They all managed to catch their breaths quite a bit. That was way too close. Don breathed. But we got it, Sokka said as he and Katara hugged. There's a solar eclipse coming. The Fire Nation's in trouble now. Alright, finally some action. Raph announced as he and Don high-fived. Leo and Aang both looked around and noticed something. Where's Appa? Aang asked. Toph looked down in shame, while Mikey shook his head. Aang gave a loud gasp as tears formed in his eyes and fell down his cheeks. What happened? Leo asked Mikey. Sandbenders. Mikey replied. Great, just great. Raph said. Things can't get any worse. Somewhere else in the Earth Kingdom, on a grassy plain, near a forest, a metal machine quickly zoomed through the plain. This was the personal transportation of the Princess of the Fire Nation. Within the moving transport, Mai and Ty Lee sat in silence, as did Azula, who had a scowl on her face that would give little children nightmares. She seems mad, Ty Lee whispered to Mai. I noticed. Mai replied. It's not every day that 4 man-sized turtles beat you. They both looked to Azula, who got up from her seat. We're not just hunting the Avatar and my brother anymore, she announced. We have 4 more targets. I won't rest until I see those turtles burnt alive. As she made that declaration, Ty Lee noticed something in the right window. Hey, what's that? All three girls looked out the window to see a bright flash of light coming from the nearby forest. The light shined for a few moments before stopping. What was that? Mai asked. Whatever it is, I'm going to find out. Azula said. Turn this thing around. From a small clearing outside the forest, two figures walked out of the forest and towards a small cliff. One of them was a large bulky man with a purple dragon tattoo on his right arm, and a foot symbol on his left arm. Right behind him was a young woman dressed in black and gray with a foot symbol in between her armor on her chest. Karai and Hun turned back to the forest where a third figure emerged. They both kneeled before the figure dressed in silver and intimidating armor. He walked past his two subordinates and to the edge of the small cliff, overlooking this new world. Shredder then gave an evil and victorious laugh as lightning flashed behind him. Chapter 4, The Desert. Hey everyone. Terribly sorry for the wait, I've had a lot of school stuff to take care of. Also, I have final exams coming up for me, so it may be a bit of wait between now and the next update. I apologize for the inconvenience. Anyway, let's begin. The Desert. Leo, Katara, Raph, Aang, Toph, Don, Sokka, Mikey, and Momo all stood in the middle of the desert, at the former site of Wan Shi Tong's library, which had now completely sunk into the ground, but that was the least of the group's concern right now. How could you two let them take Appa? Why didn't you stop them? Aang angrily asked Mikey and Toph. We did try to stop them. You try fighting those freaks, there's freaking sand everywhere. Mikey stated. The library was sinking. You guys were still inside. Toph exclaimed. You guys could have come to get us. I could have saved him. Aang argued. I tried to fight off those guys while Toph here tried to hold up the library. Mikey stated. Plus I can barely feel any vibrations out here. There wasn't enough, Toph tried. You just didn't care. Neither of you liked Appa. You wanted him gone. Aang angrily yelled. Hey, back off will you? Raph exclaimed as he walked up to Aang. These two did all they could. They freaking tried to save our lives. Shut up Raph. Aang yelled to the red-clad turtle. You didn't even try to help Appa. Oh, gee. Raph began. Maybe because I was trying not to get eaten by a psycho owl. Everyone calm down. Leo exclaimed, getting everyone's attention. Blaming anyone isn't going to help. Leo's right. Don agreed. This isn't the time to argue with each other, not in the middle of this desert. We're never gonna make it out of here though. Sokka said. Aang stubbornly began walking away. That's all any of you guys care about, yourselves. You don't care whether Appa's okay or not. We're all concerned, Katara told him, but we can't afford to be fighting now. Aang didn't even bother to listen. I'm going after Appa. He took off in his glider. Aang wait. Katara called, but he was long gone. Did he just ditch us? Raph irritatingly questioned. I think he did. Mikey said. We better start walking. Katara said. She's right. Leo agreed. We're the only ones in the planet who know about the eclipse, we need to get to Ba Sing Se. Don, do you remember which way we flew from? Yeah I do, this way. Don pointed in one direction and the group began walking. You think if we did out the giant owl, he'd give us a ride? Sokka questioned. What do you think? Raph asked sarcastically. No. Being roasted alive is better for me. Sokka replied in an equally sarcastic tone. I'm guessing Katara's the smart one in the family. Don said. Shredder, Karai, Hun, and at least 20-foot ninja all looked forward at the new world they have just entered. We are now standing in a brand new world. This is truly incredible. Karai marveled. Yeah, and this world will soon belong to us. Hun eagerly said as he clenched his massive right fist. We must find the turtles first. Shredder instructed. They had already arrived in this world, and we all know the danger they represent. Of course, Master. Hun said as he and Karai bowed their heads. From the trees of the nearby forest, 3 particular young ladies had now just spotted the Villainous ninja clan. Well, these guys certainly look interesting. Mai noted, actually taking a small liking to the ninjas' black robes. I'm certain they aren't Earth Kingdom, and I know they are not Fire Nation. Azula observed. So who are they? Ty Lee asked. I'm about to find out. Azula replied as she was about to walk forward, but Ty Lee grabbed her arm. I'm not so sure that's a good idea. She warned. Some of their auras are pretty dark, and that guy in the armor looks super scary. Azula flashed a look of amusement. Well, let's just see how scary. You there. A voice called out. The foot ninjas, Hun, and Karai looked in the direction of the voice, and Shredder only turned his head slightly. The voice came from one of 3 girls approaching them. I haven't seen the likes of you around these parts, who are you? They all looked towards Shredder, who turned his back towards them. I do not answer to children. Azula scowled a bit, she could tell that this one was the one in charge, and she did not like that attitude of his. Do you realize to whom you speak? Didn't you hear him, kid? Hun stated as he stepped forward. We don't answer to little girls, so get lost. Ty Lee cringed at that, having a feeling where this could lead. You dare? Azula questioned. I am the princess of the Fire Nation. Karai looked interested at this. A princess. Your status in royalty means nothing to me. Shredder stated as he motioned for his followers to begin walking away. I do not answer to little children, regardless of whom they claim to be. Go home to your mother, little girl. Shredder and all his followers began to walk away from the group. Even Mai cringed at that particular comment. She admitted that this may be the bravest man in the world, or he was just plain stupid. Azula's mouth hung open. No one speaks to her like that, no one. A look of searing anger formed on her face. She shot forward a stream of blue fire, which barely grazed Shredder's side, causing him to stop. Karai, Hun, as well as the foot ninja were surprised at this use of power. Was this the power of those who inhabit this world? That was a warning, Azula said to Shredder, who didn't even turn around to her. If you don't want me to turn you into ash, then you will turn around and kneel before your better. They really don't know who they're dealing with, do they? Hun thought to himself with a smug grin, whereas Karai grimaced, knowing what was going to happen next. Shredder turned around to face the 3 girls. You need to be taught a lesson. Foot ninja, educate them. The foot ninja all drew their weapons and leapt towards the 3 girls, forcing them to scatter. 5 ninja charged towards Ty Lee with swords and staffs being swung her way. She was able to avoid all their strikes with her graceful agility. One tried to swing his blade at her, but she jumped behind and nailed him in the back, blocking his kai and causing him to fall over, paralyzed. 2 came in with their swords from both directions, but she jumped high and landed on both their blades before blocking the kai in their necks, causing them to fall over as well. 1 tried to hit her from behind with his staff, but she swung on the staff and landed behind him, blocking his kai right afterwards. The last one tried to hit her in the chest, but she swerved under his punch and blocked his kai as well. Mai avoided the shurikens of 4 incoming ninja by sliding on the ground and ducking behind a tree for cover. She jumped on a tree branch and jumped forward, throwing many knives, which hit all the ninja in the sleeves of their shirts and pants, pinning them to the ground. Mai backed away just in time to avoid a massive punch, where she came face to face with the hulking behemoth known as Hun, who cracked his knuckles. Nice trick, he told her. Too bad it ain't gonna cut it against me. Mai flashed another knife before glaring towards Hun. 6 ninjas all leapt at once towards Azula, but she jumped back just as their swords hit the ground. She landed on her hands and shoot both her feet forward, sending a large ball of blue fire towards them. It exploded and sent many of them flying back. 4 tried to ambush her from behind, but they failed as she got back on her feet and sent a vertical fire arc forward, forcing them to separate. When they jumped towards her, she sent a powerful sweep of fire towards them, hitting them and sending them flying back as well. Azula then felt a kick in her back, forcing her to flip on her hands and land back on her feet, before looking at who would dare attack her. Karai unsheathed both her katanas as she looked towards Azula. You are good, especially with the use of your fire, but let us see how you do against an opponent of equal stature. You think you're on par with me? Azula questioned with an amused smile. I'll give you credit on being so bold, but let's see if you can back up those words. Mai jumped over Hun's punch and landed behind him, but had to roll back to avoid a powerful elbow. Mai had to admit that this guy was surprisingly fast for someone so large. He gripped both his hands together and tried to bring them down on her, but she backs flipped out of the way and shot many daggers towards him. He slapped them away with the back of his arm. Much to her surprise, they left a few minor cuts, but he ignored them. Hun slowly walked towards her but felt something hit his head. Ty Lee jumped on his head and jumped off, using the force from her jump to knock him down onto the ground as she landed gracefully next to her friend. You okay? Ty Lee asked with concern. I'm fine, thanks, Mai replied. This guy is really big, and I mean really big. Ty Lee observed. You said it. Hun got back up and glared towards them. Don't think I'm gonna go easy on you just because you're girls. Meanwhile, Karai and Azula were locked in a heated duel. Karai swung her blades forward, forcing Azula back. She shot a powerful stream of blue fire towards Karai, who spun her right blade like a helicopter to disperse the flaming attack. As she did this, Karai dug her left blade into the ground and swung up a stream of dirt, dispersing the fire attack coming from the princess. Karai used this to get in close. She swung her blades down just as Azula created two blue flaming daggers in her hands to intercept the blades. Karai swung again, sweeping out the flames, and she gave a kick to Azula's side. Azula stabilized herself and gave a flaming sweep of her feet to knock Karai off her feet, but she quickly flipped back up to her feet, only to face an incoming fireball. No time to think, Karai simply cut through the fire and jumped between the gap just as it exploded from behind her. Karai mentally admitted that this girl was good, very good. It seemed evident that the two were quite evenly matched. Azula noted this herself, and would not allow this. It was bad enough a group of turtles got the best of her, and she would not allow this sword woman to do the same. Azula shot multiple streams of fire with several punches and kicks, forcing Karai to avoid them. Karai could not respond to this as Azula came in with a flaming cut from her hand, which knocked Karai back on her feet. Azula gave a triumphant smile as she approached her downed opponent, but her victory came short as something powerful smacked her across the face, sending her rolling back. Azula got back up to see the attacker. Shredder looked towards Azula as he saw her get up. It is evident, girl, that you require discipline. The two glared at each other, almost like alpha predators fighting over dominance. After a few seconds of heated glaring, they both charged forward. Hun swung his massive fists around quickly, in an attempt to hit both Mai and Ty Lee, who were stuck jumping and sliding to avoid getting hit. Mai was swept by a backhand from Hun. Ty Lee responded by jabbing her hand into Hun's right shoulder, and he backed up. Huh, what was that? He joked. A tickle. Nope, that was me Kai blocking you. Ty Lee replied. It might not have hurt, but you won't be moving that arm for a while. Mai added. Hun felt his right arm with his left hand and could tell that it was numb. He glared before running forward again, swinging his left fist, forcing them to separate. Right as Ty Lee landed, Hun gave a powerful kick with his right foot, hitting her in the side, causing her to roll across the ground. Mai glared at him for that. She jumped and planted both her feet on his chest, knocking him flat on his back before she took out her knives and pinned him to the ground with his shirt. She quickly helped Ty Lee up. Are you alright? I've been better, thanks for the save. Ty Lee responded. Before anything else could be said, they heard a yell and looked towards something that made both their eyes widen. Azula blasted a stream of blue fire towards Shredder, which he took with his right shoulder before quickly jumping high and landing in front of Azula, knocking her back with the slap of his right arm. She backflipped quite a distance and sent more streams of blue fire in his direction, but he was quick enough to avoid getting hit by either attack and he quickly came up to her face, holding his clawed arm up and almost brought it down onto her, but she jumped back to avoid it. Azula felt some blood trickle down her face as Shredder's claws barely grazed her right cheek. She had to wonder, how could someone who wears so much armor be as quick and agile as Ty Lee? No, this man, he's even faster than Ty Lee. Azula couldn't finish her thought as a flying kick from Shredder sent her rolling back. She tried to get up and sent a powerful stream of blue fire in his direction, but Shredder was already in front of her. He grabbed her by the wrist and forced her to shoot the fire in a separate direction. He lifted her up by the wrist and threw her aside like a rag doll. Azula took many quick breaths as she looked towards him, wondering how this was even possible. She looked up and saw that Shredder was in between two large trees. She smiled as she sent a powerful wave of blue fire with the sweep of her legs. Shredder jumped back but he wasn't her target. The wave cut through the two trees, and subsequently lit them on fire, forcing them to fall back towards Shredder. Azula gave a triumphant smile at this, but her victory was yet again cut short as she heard some slashing noises. The tree was cut through and she could only look in surprise as Shredder walked through the fire like it was nothing. Mai and Ty Lee could not believe what they were seeing with their own eyes. This man was actually beating Azula single-handedly. He was fast enough to avoid most of her attacks, and any that did hit him had little to no effect. He was way faster than Azula. Hun looked at this with a knowing grin, while Karai just looked unsurprised as she got up. One palm strike from Shredder sent Azula back towards a tree and he slowly approached her. Your skills are amusing, child. But you are nothing to me. Ty Lee decided to jump in. She landed behind Shredder and tried to jab his right shoulder to block his Kai, but she only felt metal as it hurt her hand. Ow! She chanted repeatedly as she held her hand. Ow! 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 She slowly looked up to see Shredder glaring down at her. She gave a fearful gulp right before he gave multiple punches and palm strikes, enough to send her flying. Shredder slowly approached Ty Lee as she looked up towards him in fear. Before he could do anything, however, a knife was heading towards his face. Much to everyone's surprise, however, he caught the knife with his bare hand. Mike could only look in absolute shock, and even more so as he crushed the knife in high hand. Pathetic. He spat as he grabbed Ty Lee and quickly threw her to Mai, causing the two to roll back. But then again, this is to be expected when your opponents are mere children. Now I shall. Shredder wasn't able to finish as a surge of electricity shot through his armor and he yelled in pain, much to the shock of Karai and Hun. Shredder fell forward face down, revealing Azula in a position with her fingers extended and smoke coming from them. She had shot lightning at Shredder and scored a direct hit. Azula smiled as she gave a slight chuckle. My, Ty Lee, thank you for distracting him, it gave me the proper opening. Azula told them. Ah, you're welcome. Ty Lee gave a slight smile, while Mai just scowled a little bit. Azula looked down towards the fallen villain. This serves you right. Who do you think you are to treat me so lowly? You may have some skill, but I am far superior. She was cut off by a faint chuckle. She looked in surprise at where it was coming from. Shredder's hands were placed on the ground and he slowly pushed himself up as he continued to laugh. Mai and Ty Lee could only look in absolute terror at this as Shredder got back up and laughed even more. His laugh would strike terror into their hearts. None, however, were more terrified than Azula, who could only look in disbelief. No, this isn't possible. She breathed as Shredder turned around towards her, and she found herself backing up away from him. How? That was a direct hit. Shredder slowly walked towards her as she backed up even more. No one survives lighting. Who? No, what? What are you? She yelled, completely losing her composure. I am the Shredder. He then gave multiple punches and palm strikes towards Azula, who was unable to block any of them. He gave a knee to her gut, a punch across the face, a slash on her side, a kick to her chest, and finally a back slap that sent her flying towards a tree, her head hitting hard against it, and knocking her unconscious. Mai and Ty Lee's expressions couldn't be described with mere words. This Shredder had just survived a direct hit from lighting, and defeated Azula. He slowly turned towards them. Ty Lee held onto Mai as she was clearly frightened, and Mai wasn't too far behind. Now, what shall I do with you? He mused. Karai approached him. Father, if I may. Father. Mai and Ty Lee both thought at the same time. We still know nothing about this world, and that one said she was a princess. Karai gestured to Azula. She will likely have some knowledge, perhaps they have Volta us. Shredder considered this for a moment before coming to a decision. Very well then, restrain them. Mai, I'm scared. Ty Lee squeaked. Me too, Ty Lee. Me too. Elsewhere, Zuko and Iroh rode on their ostrich horse through a rocky valley. As they rode, Iroh twitched and made a few aching sounds as he was in slight pain. Maybe we should make camp. Zuko suggested. No please, don't stop just for me. Iroh assured before groaning quite dramatically. Zuko decided to stop. He got off the ostrich horse with his uncle, who sat down and held his aching shoulder. The ostrich horse gave a squawk as it sensed something coming. What now? Iroh questioned impatiently. Before they knew it, 5 heavily armed men surrounded the duo, each riding on top of a Komodo rhino, and each of them bearing all sorts of dangerous weapons. Zuko immediately took a combat stance, while Iroh got up with a friendly smile. Colonel Monk. What a pleasant surprise. If you're surprised we're here, then the Dragon of the West has lost a few steps. He and all his other men each showed off their weapons, in an effort to intimidate the 2 firebenders. You know these guys? Zuko asked his uncle. Sure, Colonel Monk and the rough rhinos are legendary. Each one is a different kind of weapons specialist. They are also a very capable signing group. Iroh explained. We're not here to give a concert. Monk exclaimed. We're here to apprehend fugitives. Would you like some tea first? Iroh offered. I'd love some. How about you, Kachi? I make you as a jasmine man. Am I right? Enough stalling. Round them up. Monk ordered. Ogode immediately flung his ball and chain towards Iroh, which he was able to kick away, causing the chain to wrap around the leg of Kachi's Komodo rhino. Iroh quickly rolled under a flaming arrow and a fireball and slapped the Kachi's Komodo rhino, causing it to run away and pulling Ogode with him. Iroh gave a friendly wave as he was pulled away. Vakir shot a flaming arrow towards Zuko, who cut it away with a flaming swipe of his hand. Zuko then shot a thin stream of fire, blowing a hole in the bow and cutting the string, much to Vakir's horror. Monk then shot multiple fire streaks towards Iroh, who was able to block them all with palm strikes. This gave Zuko an opening to come in from behind and send Monk off his Komodo rhino with a flaming sweep of his legs. Iroh quickly remounted the ostrich horse, which began to run away from the battle. Zuko jumped on and the two began to retreat. As they ran, Yelu pursued them on his Komodo rhino. He lit a bomb and threw it to them, which exploded. Zuko and Iroh rode out of the smoke on their ostrich horse, and managed to get away. It's nice to see old friends. Iroh said. Too bad you don't have any old friends who don't want to attack you. Zuko stated. Iroh looked a bit surprised. Old friends that don't want to attack me. He considered. Back in the desert, Leo, Katara, Raph, Toph, Sokka, Don, and Mikey continued to walk through the scorching heat, with no end of the desert in sight. The turtles were able to endure it, due to their ninja training, but they could tell the kids were having more trouble, so they hung back with them to help them out. Raph stuck close to Toph, who had a difficult time seeing in this desert. Sokka hung Momo over him to give him some shade, but was bumped in the back by Toph. Can't you watch where you're? No. Toph replied. Right, sorry. Sokka said as he rubbed the back of his neck. Katara stopped. Come on, we need to stick together. Sokka tried to pry himself loose from Toph as their clothes were stuck together. If I sweat any more, I don't think sticking together will be a problem. Raph placed his hand on Sokka's face and shoved him off Toph. Mikey rubbed the sweat off his face. Oh man, now I know what the inside of a pizza feels like. Donnie, are you sure this is the right way? Raph asked. Yeah, I'm sure. Don replied. This is the way we came, but without Appa we're stuck walking there. Does anyone have any water? Toph asked. I do. Leo said as he took out a large water sack. When I heard we'd be going into the desert, I got quite a bit while we were at that tavern. But between all of us, we still gotta conserve. Leo opened the cap and Katara bent some water out of it, creating a series of floating water orbs that flew into the mouths of each of them. Mikey let it swirled in his mouth for a while. Bending water tastes weird. Raph looked down to Toph. Hey kid, you doing okay? I'm fine. Raph kneeled down on her level. Still upset about Appa. Toph didn't answer. Listen Toph, what Aang said was total garbage. You shouldn't listen to people who give you crap like that. Raph, take it easy. Katara tried. Aang's just going through a hard time. I would take it easy. Raph replied. If the kid didn't fly off and leaves out here to fend for ourselves. Raph, stop. We're not going to put the blame on anyone. We need to focus on getting out of here, and we only have a limited supply of water. Sokka soon eyed something that made him smile. Not anymore. Look. He pointed to a cactus. Yes. Thank you. Mikey praised as he, Sokka, even Momo ran to the cactus. Sokka used his machete to cut open the cactus and the three immediately drank from them. Wow, Sokka, Mikey, you guys don't even know what's in them. Don told them as they all ran forward. Regardless, the three guzzled down the white juice that was in the cactus. I may not know what it is, but it is good. Mikey said. Want some? Sokka offered. I don't know. Katara replied as she warily took a step back. No thanks. Raph said as he stuck out his hand. Suit yourselves, it's very thirst-quenching though. Sokka said. However, both Mikey and Sokka's eyes changed as their pupils widened as they both began to shake their heads rapidly. Drink cactus juice. It'll quench ya. Sokka said as he were advertising in a commercial. Yep, nothing's quenchier. Mikey said in a similar tone as he flapped on the ground. It's the quenchiest, they both said at the same time with wide smiles. Leo, Don, and Katara each looked with one raised eyebrow while Raph just face-palmed. Okay, I think you two had enough. Katara said as she dumped the cactus juice out. It's clearly some kind of hallucinogen. Don observed. What tipped you off, Brainiac? Raph asked sarcastically. Who lit Toph on fire? Sokka asked as he looked to the girl. Whoa Leo, Mikey dazed. Since when was your skin made of gold? They soon all looked up to Momo who was flying around in circles before flying straight down and slamming on the ground. Can I get some of that cactus? Toph asked. Trust me, you don't want any. Leo told her. Come on, let's keep moving. Katara took Toph's hand and helped her while Leo, Don, and Raph followed, but Mikey, Sokka, and Momo just looked dazedly up at the sky. Raph came up to them and flung both of them over his shoulders, along with Momo. How did we get out here in the middle of the ocean? The hallucinating Sokka asked. We flew here on a giant rainbow barfing unicorn. The hallucinating Mikey replied. As if these two weren't enough trouble already. Raph uttered. Meanwhile, Aang continued to fly on his glider, looking for his beloved bison. He blew into his whistle. Appa. Aang flew downwards and landed on a small sand dune. Appa. He called again, but got no response. He could not believe any of this was happening. No. No. He angrily slammed his staff on the ground with airbending, creating a giant mushroom cloud. The rest of the group saw that cloud from the distance. Much dust flew their way before they saw it. What is that? Katara asked. What? What is what? Toph asked, as she was unable to see it. A mushroom cloud. Usually the after effect of a bomb going off. Don replied. Or more likely the kid throwing a temper tantrum. Raph said. A giant mushroom. The hallucinating Mikey gazed. Maybe it's friendly. The hallucinating Sokka exclaimed. Come on, let's move. Leo ordered. I hope Aang's okay. Katara hopped as they all began to walk away. Friendly mushroom. Mushy giant friend. Sokka gazed as he wrung his body around with Momo hanging on. All hail the giant mushroom. All hail the giant mushroom. Mikey gazed as well as he bowed repeatedly. Misty Palms Oasis. Yeah, a little barefoot blind girl and her friends passed through here a few days ago. A man explained to Shin Fu and Yu. Did they give you any indication where they were heading? Yu asked. Maybe you could give me a little incentive. The man asked, rubbing his fingers together. You suggesting I break your fingers? Shin Fu questioned. They went into the desert. The frightened man quickly replied. Too bad there's almost no chance they survived. Shin Fu wasn't really fazed by this. That's okay, because she's wanted dead or alive. No she's not. Yu told his partner. I'm certain her father wants her alive. Shin Fu saw something that caught his attention. Hey look. Fire Nation wanted posters. They saw 5 posters, one of Aang, another of the Blue Spirit, and one of Zuko and Iroh. So, Yu asked. So, look who's here. Shin Fu said as they looked behind to see Zuko and Iroh enter a tavern. The two bounty hunters looked to each other with knowing grins. Azula's eyes slowly opened as she regained consciousness. She tried to move, but something was holding her down, and she felt something around her mouth. She was unable to talk. She then looked at herself and saw her hands were tied behind her back. Rope was wrapped around her upper body, binding her arms to her sides. Her ankles were also tied together, and she had a thick cloth wrapped over her mouth to keep her from speaking. There was another long rope that kept her already tied up body tied to the bottom of large tree that she was sitting against. MMMPH. MMMHPH. She grunted as she struggled in her bindings. AZMMPHA. MMMPH. Azula looked to her right to find Ty Lee tied up in the exact same fashion, also tied to the same tree, looking quite frightened. Azula then looked to her left to find Mai in the exact same possession. GRRRMMPH. Mai struggled. Azula looked up where she saw at least 40-foot ninja inspecting her vehicle, along with a large metal body with a transparent image of a man's head serving as the head. This is quite primitive. Stockman observed. If I had to guess, I'd say this early industrial work. I wouldn't be surprised if they hadn't invented the telegram yet. So this world's low on tech, big whoop. Hun brushed off. Regardless, we should not let our guard down. Karai advised. Karai is quite correct. That voice made Mai, Tai Li, even Azula tremble as they looked to see Shredder walking onto the scene. We know little to nothing about this world, and we cannot afford to underestimate the inhabitants, as our prisoner has shown us the ability to generate fire. There was a cloud of smoke that appeared in front of the Shredder, Karai, and Hun. Out of the smoke were 4 heavily armed warriors, the Shredder's elite guard, his most deadly warriors. They kneeled before their master. "Well, what did you find?" Shredder asked. "Master," one elite foot began, "it is not just fire, people control here. We saw many able move the earth as well." "Are you certain?" Karai asked, quite surprised. "Indeed," another foot elite replied. "And what's more, this world appears to be engulfed in a war. There is also a mention of one being who is capable of not just controlling fire and earth, but also water and air. Someone called the Avatar. Is that so?" Shredder asked, as he was now interested. "I'm sure the turtles are likely involved in this now, knowing them." That one word caused the bound and gagged Azula, Tai Li, and Mai to look at each other with surprise. TRRTMMLs. MMMPH. MMMMPPHH. MMMMPPH. Tai Li moaned loudly through her gag to try and get their attention. Hun slowly walked towards her. "You got something to say, kid?" She nodded. Hun then pulled off the gag, allowing Tai Li to talk. "You said turtles. We met those guys. 4 of them, they can walk and talk like people. Got some colorful masks on." Hun looked a little surprised, as did Karai. Shredder found himself quite interested. "What do you know of the turtles?" Shredder asked. "Well, we fought them," Tai Li began, "and lost, but they're traveling with the Avatar. I'm guessing they're probably friends now." Shredder looked down towards Azula, who tried to muster up a glare of defiance, but Shredder saw through her. He raised his claws and quickly brought them down, cutting the rope binding Azula. She took off her gag before Shredder seized her by her collar and brought her to his face. As she looked into his red eyes, a new emotion swept through her, something she has never once experienced in her life. Fear. "You will tell me everything you know of this world, starting with this Avatar." The desert. The sun hung low, so the temperature was now starting to cool. The turtles and the kids continued their walk through the seemingly endless desert, with Leo leading the group and Katara close behind him. They saw a shadow pass over them. It was Aang on his glider. He sat down on his knees near the group where Katara and Leo made their way to him. "I'm guessing you haven't had any luck," Leo assumed. Aang didn't answer. "I'm sorry, Aang," Katara tried to console. "I know it's hard for you right now, but we need to focus on getting out of here." She put a hand on his shoulder, but he shrugged it off. "What's the difference?" Aang said. "We won't survive without Appa, we all know it." "Great." Raph rolled his eyes. "Now he's going emo on us." The others choose to ignore his comment. "Don't tell me you're giving up already," Leo stated. "We can still get out of here." "He's right," Katara agreed. "We got a chance if we work together." Toph. "As far as I can feel, we're trapped in a giant bowl of sand pudding." "I got nothing." "Don, anything?" Leo asked. "If I had to guess, I'd say we're at least 30 miles away from the edge of this place. And between how much water we have for the 8 of us, we won't have enough to make it out without serious dehydration." "Sokka," Katara asked. "Why don't we ask the circle birds?" The hallucinating Sokka suggested as he, Mikey, and Momo lied flat on the ground. "Mr. Circle Birds, what's the address to the nearest pizza joint?" The hallucinating Mikey asked. Leo, Raph, Katara, and Don looked up to see 4 wasp vulture-like creatures circling the group in the air. "Are those supposed to be buzzards, or something?" Raph asked, resulting in Leo and Don giving him questionable looks. No pun intended. But from the looks of things, I'd say about half this group has already given up. "We are not going to die out here," Leo exclaimed. "Everyone up. Now." Leo's right. "We're getting out of this desert, and we're gonna do it together." Raph, you help Toph. Don, take Sokka. Katara, you'll help Mikey. Get up, Aang, we're leaving now. Leo stated as they began walking. Raph stuck close to Toph and helped her walk through the sand. Don took the hallucinating Sokka over his shoulder. Along with Momo, Katara took Mikey's hand as he still had a wide hallucinating smile. Leo picked Aang up by his arm and the group continued walking. The sun had just about set and the stars began to show as night had now fallen. The group came to a large sand dune. I think we should stop for the night, Katara suggested. Aang, Toph, Sokka, even Mikey all fell face flat on the ground. Raph and Don crouched down to catch their breath while Leo just stood with Katara. Leo walked towards Mikey who began snoring like a chainsaw. Mikey's out cold, Leo informed. Well, at least he's getting some rest, Katara said. Don. If we keep walking straight, I'd say we can get out of here in 2 days max, and that's if we don't sleep at all. Is there any more water? Toph asked. Hang on, Katara said as she began to bend some water from her satchel. Momo, still high on cactus juice, flew into the water, causing it to spill. Momo, no, Sokka yelled. You've killed us all. No, he hasn't, Katara said as she bent the water out of the sand and back into her satchel. Oh, right, bending. Plus I got some extra anyway, Leo added. Raph got down next to Toph with some water and helped her to drink some. Don walked up to Sokka. Sokka, let me see what kind of map you got from the library. The ponytailed teen held his bag close. What? I didn't steal anything. Who told you that? He looked to Momo. It was you. You ratted me out. The flying lemur began to cry. We were there, idiot, Raph reminded. Sokka took the maps out. He picked up something that caught his interest. Hey, a star chart. Perfect. It doesn't matter, none of those will tell us where Appa is, Aang said, resulting in Raph rolling his eyes again. Aang was really starting to get on his nerves now. Maybe not, but they can help us get out of this pit, Leo said. Can this help Don? You bet, he replied. We can travel at night when the temperature is low, and rest during the day. I hate to say it, but no one is willing to travel right now, Raph said, and they looked to see Aang, Mikey, Toph, Sokka, and Momo were all lying flat on the ground, quite exhausted. Just try to get some sleep, we'll start again in a few hours, Katara said. Raph and Don began to lie down and tried to get some rest. Leo meanwhile sat down next to Katara. How you holding up? I don't know, to be honest, Katara replied, looking down. You're really something, you know that, Leo began. Most of them have already given up, but you're keeping a cool head, you're taking charge. That's something admirable. Katara turned to him slightly. Yeah, well, to tell you the truth, I'm scared. I'm scared that we're not gonna make it out of this. Leo put a hand on her shoulder, causing her to look to him as he had a serious expression on his face. Don't ever lose hope. That's the first lesson Master Splinter taught us. Your will can be your greatest weapon. We are going to make it out of this. I don't know about you, but my brothers and I have been through our fair share of hopeless situations before, and this won't be the last. We fall and stumble, yes, but we pick ourselves up, and our struggles only make us stronger. Katara looked to him with a small smile. Thanks, Leo, I really needed that. Leo smiled and nodded. Get some rest, you need some too. Misty Palms Oasis. Zuko and Iroh sat in the tavern. Zuko took a moment to look at his surroundings. No one here is going to help us, these people just look like filthy wanderers. So do we, Iroh replied. He noticed something behind Zuko that got his attention. Ah, this is interesting. Zuko looked behind to see an old man at a pie show table on the other side of the tavern. I think I found our friend. You brought us here to gamble on pie show? Zuko questioned. I do not think that this is a gamble, Iroh replied as the two walked over to the table. Little did they know, they are being watched by two certain men. Let's take them now, Shin Fu said as he got up, but you put a hand on his shoulder, stopping him. This place is full of desperate characters. If they find out we're collecting a bounty, we may have to fight them all just to keep our prize. Patience. Shin Fu sat back down. Zuko and Iroh approached the pie show table. May I have this game? Iroh asked. The guest has the first move, the man said as Iroh sat across from him. Iroh took the White Lotus tile and placed it in the middle of the board. I see you favor the White Lotus gambit. Not many still cling to the ancient ways. Those who do can always find a friend, Iroh replied. Then let us play. Zuko sat down as he watched the two elderly men lay down a series of pie show tiles across the table. It finally ended when the tiles formed a pattern on the table that bore the resemblance of a lotus. Welcome, brother. The White Lotus opens wide to all those who know her secrets. What are you old gas bags talking about? Zuko questioned. I always tried to tell you that Pai Sho is more than just a game. Iroh replied as he played with a tile in his fingers. Shin Fu was not one for knowing patience. I'm not waiting all night for these geezers to finish yapping. He and you got up and approached the table. It's over. You two fugitives are coming with me. The old man got up. I knew it, he said. You two are wanted criminals with a giant bounty on your heads. I thought you said he would help. Zuko exclaimed to Iroh. He is, just watch. Iroh whispered. The old man turned to you and Shin Fu. You think you are going to capture them and collect all that gold. That caught the attention of pretty much everyone in the tavern. Gold. Every one of them bore some sort of weapon, ready to collect this gold. Shin Fu and you were surrounded. Maybe we shouldn't. You suggested, but Shin Fu bore an eager smile and cracked his neck. He kicked and sent a rock that knocked back two goons in front of him. You made a stance and quickly sunk an incoming guy into the ground. Shin Fu fought off a group of sandbenders. He kicked two of them before throwing two more away and into a wall over the bar counter. Zuko, Iroh, and the old man used this as a distraction to slip away unnoticed. Shin Fu and you stood in the middle of the broken tavern, surrounded by the unconscious bodies of all the goons. They saw that their prize has vanished. In his frustration, Shin Fu raised a column of earth that sent a poor guy flying out the window. The desert. It was still night outside as the group slowly began to wake up. Leo and Katara were the first. Katara went to her brother, whom Momo had buried in sand. Come on, get up. We need to go, Katara said as Sokka, still a bit high on cactus juice, got up. Mikey groaned as Don helped him up. You doing okay, Mikey? My head feels like it was in a paint mixer. Don, next time I try to drink out of a cactus, just hit me real hard. Mikey said, as he was no longer high and starting to regain his senses. Don gave an amused smile as he patted his brother's shoulder. Raph helped Toph up. How you feeling, kid? Toph smacked her lips. Yesterday my mouth tasted like mud, now it just tastes like sand. I never thought I'd miss the taste of mud so much. Katara made her way over to Aang. I'm awake, I couldn't sleep. Well, we need to get moving if we wanna get out of this sandpit. Katara said as Aang got up. He looked towards the moon and saw a familiar shape. Appa, he happily exclaimed. Where? Mikey questioned as he looked around. Appa, Sokka asked as he was still hallucinating. But why would Princess Yu need him? She's the moon, she flies by herself. After a closer look, the group was disappointed when they saw it wasn't the sky bison. It's just a cloud, Katara said. Wait, a cloud, Don stated. A cloud has water in it. You're right. Katara went to Aang. Here, fly up and bend the water from that cloud into my pouch. Aang shot an angry look to Katara as he took the pouch and flew up to the cloud. He flew through it twice before it disappeared. He flew back down and threw it to Katara. She was disappointed as she looked into it. Wow, there's hardly any more. I'm sorry, okay. Aang angrily yelled. It's a desert cloud, I did all I could. What's anyone else doing? What are you doing? He angrily pointed his staff towards Katara. Raph couldn't take any more of this. What she has been doing is working her butt off to keep this group together, which is more than I can say for you, you little ingrate. Aang glared towards Raph. What? You heard me. Raph began. You have done nothing at all to help us. You've just pouted and whined like a 3-year-old. In fact, you left us hanging in the middle of the desert and didn't even bother to help us. I was looking for Appa. Oh great for you, Raph said sarcastically. And hey, while you were out there, we were trekking through this hellhole, practically dying. You hear me? You left us to die, you little brat. Raph, stop. Katara tried. No, I'm sick of you giving this kid the sugar treatment, and I'm sick of his bad attitude. Raph stated. That's enough, Raph. Don tried. He needs to hear this. Raph turned back to Aang. Look at your so-called friends, kid. Toph is completely helpless. Mikey and Sokka are high on cactus juice. The rest of us are nearly starving to death out here, and you're more worried about your stupid bison. Raph shoved Aang a bit as he yelled. Who are you calling stupid? Aang yelled back. I was talking about the bison, but if the shoe fits. Raph exclaimed. Well, I say, who needs ya? You want to search for that hair ball, go ahead. But you'd be doing it on your own. We got more important things to worry about. You can either help us, or get lost you good for nothing, whiny little brat. In his anger, Aang sent a gust of wind to Raph, sending him rolling across the dune, much to everyone's shock. Uh-oh. Don grimaced. He did not just do that. Mikey said. Raph slowly got up and was breathing like a hungry animal. That tears it. Raph then jumped to Aang and kicked him hard in the chest, sending him sliding hard against the dune. When Aang got up, he saw Raph had his say out. You wanna go, kid? Huh, is that what you want? You take back what you said. You take it all back. Aang yelled. Make me. Raph and Aang then charged at each other. Katara was about to stop them, but Leo already beaten her to the punch. Leo quickly appeared between the two, and they stopped when he drew both his swords and pointed them towards each of their necks. Raph, Aang, that's enough. Both of you cool off. Out of the way, Leo, this punk needs to learn a lesson. Raph said. Aang could have handled a little better, that much we agree on. Leo began. But we're not getting out of this desert if we end up killing each other. So cool it, Raph. Raph gave a sigh as he put away his say and walked away. Leo turned to Aang, who still had a scowl on his face. You need to cool it too. Leo said. We're all worried about Appa, but we can't find him if we die out here. We get out of this pit first, and then I promise we'll find Appa. But your attitude isn't helping, and neither is you blaming everyone, especially Katara, when she's been doing all she can to keep this group together. What do you know? Aang angrily asked. I know a lot more than you think, Aang. Like, for example, I know that you're not mad at any of us, you're mad at yourself for not being there for Appa. So cool it, because Raph is right, your bad attitude is only making this ordeal worse. Leo put away his swords. Let's get moving. Katara looked towards Leo and let all the words he spoke sink in. The group continued their walk. Toph's foot hit something and she tripped. Crud, she exclaimed as she held her stubbed toe. I am so sick of not feeling where I'm going. And what idiot buried a boat in the middle of the desert? A boat? Don and Katara questioned at the same time. Believe me, I kicked it hard enough to feel plenty of vibrations. Toph grumbled. Don and Katara inspected the part that Toph stubbed her toe on. Aang got down near them and swung his staff, using airbending to bend all the sand away from it, revealing what was buried. Dudes, it's a sandbender boat, Mikey recognized. Finally, something good for us, Raph exclaimed. Katara, Leo, and Don got onto it. Look, it's got some kind of compass on it. I bet it can point us out of here. She tapped the compass to make sure it worked, and it did. Alright then, Leo began. Don, you and Katara can navigate while Aang uses his airbending to blow this thing. We're getting out of this desert. I hear that, bro. Raph and Leo high-fived, as did Don. They all turned to see Sokka, still high, burring Momo with a wide smile on his face. The old man had led Zuko and Iroh into a flower shop. He made sure to close and lock the door behind them. It is an honor to welcome such a high-ranking member of the Order of the White Lotus. Being a Grand Master, you must know so many secrets. He led the two firebenders to a back room in the shop. Now that you played Pai's show, are you going to do some flower arranging? Or is someone in this club gonna offer us some real help? Zuko impatiently asked. Iroh looked towards his friend. You must forgive my nephew. He is not an initiate, and has little appreciation for the cryptic arts. They knocked on the door and a small window opened. Who knocks at the guarded gate? A man behind the door asked. One who has eaten the fruit, and tasted its mysteries. Iroh replied. The door was opened and the two elderly men entered. Zuko was about to enter but the door closed before he could. The window opened with Iroh behind it. I'm afraid it's members only, wait out here. Zuko then leaned against a box and sniffed a flower, for the sake of boredom. Back in the desert, the 8 heroes sailed through the sands on the sailor. Aang was blowing air to keep it going. Raph sat on the right side next to Toph. Mikey sat with Sokka on the left side. Leo, Don, and Katara stood at the top with the compass. Katara looked at the compass while Don looked at the star chart. Oh, we may have a problem. Don said. Raph groaned. Now what? The needle on this compass isn't pointing north, not according to these charts. Katara replied. Take it easy, guys. The still high Sokka said. I'm sure the sand folks who built this baby know how to get around here. Leo looked towards Mikey. How come he's still out of it, but you're getting better? Must be ninja training, remember. Master Splinter told us how to strengthen our immune system. Mikey replied. And my head's starting to feel a lot better. Good. Raph replied. Now we only got one useless idiot to worry about. Hey, what's that? Leo asked, pointing forward. Katara looked to where he was pointing. That's what the compass is pointing to, that giant rock. Of course, it's gotta be the magnetic center of the desert. Don realized. A rock? Toph excitedly asked. Yes, let's go. Maybe we can find some food and shelter. Don hopped. Maybe we can find some sandbenders. Aang said in a rather vindictive tone, something that Leo noticed. The sun had now risen as the group had now climbed to the top of the large rock. Ah, finally. Toph sighed happily. Solid ground. She fell back, and began to make a rock angel. You're making an angel out of rock, you're the coolest little girl I've ever met. Raph said with a cocked smile. Leo looked out to the horizon. The sun is about to rise. We should get inside before the heat hits, see if we can find some food and water. They all walked into the large cave. Sokka sighed a bit. I think my head is starting to clear out the cactus juice. And look. He picked up some slime-like substance from the walls and licked it, and also gave some to Momo. He then spat it out, as did the flying lemur. Taste like rotten penguin meat. He hung his head down. Oh, I feel woozy. You've been hallucinating on cactus juice all day, and then you just lick something you find stuck to the wall of a cave. Katara angrily questioned. There is something seriously wrong with you, you know that right? Raph questioned as well. I have a natural curiosity. Sokka replied. Your curiosity is anything but natural. Don said. Seriously Sokka, even I think that's dumb. Mikey added. Toph began to feel the wall with her hand. I don't think this is a normal cave. This was carved by something. Yeah, look at the shape. Aang said as he looked to the ceiling. Don looked as well. It's shaped like a hexagon. Just like, it dawned on Don. Like hornet hives. This isn't a cave, it's nest. Leo exclaimed. Well, whatever's in here, it's coming for us. Toph sensed. Everyone out. Now, Leo ordered. They all ran outside, and following them were the vulture wasp creatures they saw earlier, only there were many more. They quickly surrounded the group, while the turtles drew their weapons. Finally, Raph exclaimed with an eager smile. I've been wanting to hit something all day. The vulture wasps charged forward. Raph ran and tackled one and quickly pinned it down before plunging his sai into its neck, killing it. One tried to come at him from behind and he quickly turned around and kicked it down. When a third tried to attack him, he charged forward, plunging both his sai into its chest. Leo rolled under one and towards another. In a fluent fashion, he used his katana to cut its wings off and kick it into another incoming vulture wasp. Leo then blocked a bite by crossing his blades and pushed forward, cutting its face off. Don twirled his staff and blocked a sting strike from one vulture wasp before bashing it across the head and sending it flying. He then pole vaulted on his staff and slammed his feet onto another incoming vulture wasp. As he landed, he used his staff to jam the end into the throat of another one that tired to bite him. As three vulture wasps surrounded Mikey, he twirled his nunchucks and flailed them at all the incoming bugs, bashing and knocking them all back. Despite being hallucinating a few hours ago, he still kept a clear head. Aang sent an airwave forward that knocked back a vulture wasp. One sat down on a rock. As soon as Toph sensed it, she sent the rock straight up, sending the creature flying. Toph sent another rock flying, but it just barely landed in front of Sokka. What are you doing? That rock almost crushed me. Sorry. I can't tell where they are in the air. Toph replied. Sokka saw another vulture wasp fly past him. I got this one. He ran forward and began to relentlessly swing his machete. Sokka, there's nothing there, Katara told him. Sokka realized she was right. I guess my head's not as clear as I thought. When is your head ever clear? Raph questioned. There's too many of them, we need to get out of here. Now, Leo exclaimed. A vulture wasp snatched Momo and began to fly away. Momo, Aang exclaimed. I'm not losing anyone else out here. Aang then took off after the vulture wasp on his glider. Come on, we're going down, Katara said. The group then began to make their way down the rock, while still fighting off the vulture wasps. Raph was close to Toph, acting as her eyes. Kid, 12 o'clock. Toph shot a rock straight forward, nailing the vulture wasp. Come on, let's keep moving. Leo stated as they continued to make their way down. Aang flew after the vulture wasp that had Momo in its grip. He flew underneath it and sent an airwave up that freed Momo, who flew parallel to Aang. The Avatar saw the vulture wasp trying to fly away and gave a dark look before flying downward and sending a vertical air slice forward, which hit and killed the vulture wasp. Aang still maintained a dark expression before walking back with Momo following him. The group was close to making it down to the sailor, only to be surrounded by the rest of the vulture wasps. There's too many. We can't escape them, Katara exclaimed. Then we'll just fight our way through, Leo declared as he readied his swords. They wouldn't have to, however, as multiple, large columns of sand rose from the desert ground and engulfed the vulture wasps. Not wanting to get killed, the remaining vulture wasps flew back up towards their hive. The group saw, as the dust cleared, that they were surrounded by many sandbenders. Great, this day can't get any more perfect, Raph commented sarcastically just as Aang landed in front of the rest of the group. Flower shop. Zuko was asleep, leaning against the box. The door opened, startling him awake, and he took a combat stance. What's going on? Is the club meeting over? Iroh and the old man walked outside. Everything is taken care of, Iroh answered. We're headed to Ba Sing Se. Ba Sing Se? Zuko questioned. Why would we go to the Earth Kingdom capital? The city is filled with refugees. The old man said. No one will notice two more. We can hide in plain sight there, Iroh said. And it's the safest place in the world from the Fire Nation. Even I couldn't break through to the city. A man walked in from the front door. I have the passports for our guests, but there are two men out on the street looking for them. They looked out the window to see Shin Fu and you with the wanted poster, asking people around. The desert. What are you doing in our land with a sandbender sailor? The leader asked. From the looks of it, you stole it from the Hami tribe. And it seems you even have demons with you. Demons? Raph angrily questioned. Katara put her hand in front of Raph. They're not demons, they're wayward spirits. They mean you no harm. And we didn't steal this sailor, Leo added. We found it buried in the middle of the desert. We're traveling with the Avatar. The sandbender leader looked surprised. Our sky bison was stolen, and we need to get out of this desert and to Ba Sing Se. Don said as well. You dare accuse our people of theft while you ride in on a stolen sand sailor? A young sandbender questioned. Toph and Mikey eyed this young sandbender. Watch it, kid, Raph warned. I'm in a bad mood as it is, you do not want to test me. The young sandbender glared before the leader stopped him. That's enough, Gashwin. No one accused our people of anything. If what they say is true, we must give them hospitality. Sorry, father. Toph's eyes widened. I recognize the son's voice. He's the one who stole Appa. Are you sure? Katara asked. She's right, Mikey added. He remembered when Appa was stolen, how he threw a shuriken at one sandbender and it cut his mask, revealing his face. Mikey even saw the exact same cut. I saw his face, he's the guy all right. That was all Aang needed to hear. You stole Appa. He stomped forward, staff at the ready. Where is he? What did you do to him? They're lying, the son quickly said. They're the thieves. Aang used his staff to send an air wave forward that destroyed a sand sailor. Even Raph looked somewhat surprised at that. Where is my bison? Aang demanded. Back in town, a man left the flower whip with two large flower pots on a dolly. Shin Fu and you walked to the shop. Shin Fu slammed the door open. Hey you, he told the store owner. Where are these men? He showed the wanted poster of Iroh and Zuko. I got a tip that they're in your shop. As you can see, no one is here but us. The store owner replied. We know all about your secret back room. You said, kick it down. He told Shin Fu, who ran forward. Hey, that room is for flowers only. Shin Fu kicked the door down, only to reveal that the back room was completely empty, save for a white lotus tile on the floor. You picked it up. Some unlucky soul has an incomplete pie show set. You said before Shin Fu slapped it away. Let's go back to finding the girl, he said, giving up this bounty. Elsewhere, the dolly continued moved, while Zuko and Iroh were revealed to have hidden in the flower pots. Desert. You tell me where he is now. Aang demanded as he bent an airwave to destroy another sand sailor. What did you do? The father Sandbender questioned to his son. It wasn't me. He tried. I saw you. Mikey called. I saw your face. You said to put a muzzle on him. Toph added. You muzzled Appa. Aang angrily questioned before his eyes and tattoos glowed white, and he entered the avatar state. He sent another airwave forward, completely obliterating another sand sailor. I'm sorry. I didn't know it belonged to the avatar. The frightened son exclaimed. Tell me where Appa is. Aang bellowed in the avatar state. You better say something, buddy. Raph advised. I traded him to some merchants. The son revealed. He's probably in Ba Sing Se by now, they were gonna sell him there. Aang did not like the answer. Please. We'll escort you out of the desert. We'll help however we can. A large and powerful air sphere surrounded Aang as his rage took control, creating a sand cyclone. Just get out of here. Now, Sokka said as he, Toph, Leo, Raph, Don, and Mikey ran forward to get the Sandbenders back. The turtles stood firm as they saw Aang in the avatar state. Aang, listen, Leo called out. Calm down. This isn't helping anything. He didn't seem to listen. Guys, Leo turned to his brothers. If he can't listen, do whatever it takes. They all nodded as each of the turtles drew their respective weapons, preparing for the worst. Aang slowly rose in his air sphere, with a face that looked like he was ready to unleash hell. A hand gripped his arm, and he turned to see Katara giving him a look of sympathy. She brought him down before pulling him into a hug. The turtles looked in surprise as the storm began to die down. Tears welled up in both their eyes as the storm vanished and Aang's tattoos vanished. The turtles lowered their weapons. Azula, Ty Lee, and Mai were surrounded by the many-foot ninja, including the Foot Elite. Azula and Mai shot glares while Ty Lee looked frightened. She looked towards one of the Foot Elite. Nice hats. She complimented, but the Foot Elite glared at her, causing her to be silent. Meanwhile, Shredder, Stockman, Karai, and Hun were discussing what they had learned from Azula. This world is comprised of 4 nations where some people are capable of bending one of the 4 elements. One person in particular, born every generation, could bend all 4 elements at once and acted as the guardian of this world. Currently, this world is in the midst of a 100-year-long war, one where one nation, the air nomads, have been whipped out while the fire nation is striving for world domination, and the water tribes and earth kingdom are struggling to hold them back. The current avatar, a boy named Aang, has allied himself with the turtles. This is quite an interesting world we've entered. Karai said. Hun gave an amused smile. I kinda like this fire nation, I admire their ruthlessness, not unlike the Foot. Still, this world is quite primitive. Stockman mused. But I'd be curious as to see what this, bending, has in store. Well, father, what do you think? Karai asked. The turtles are here, Shredder began. And even if they weren't, it's obvious this avatar would pose a threat to my plans, he must be eliminated. I do see your point earlier though, Karai. Since the turtles have made allies on this planet, we should do the same. And this Fire Lord character seems quite ruthless, the Fire Nation could be of great use to me. Shredder approached his ninja, who all bowed down before him, and he approached the 3 Fire Nation girls. Ty Lee hid behind Azula and Mai, while the 2 tried to muster up glares towards him. Your nation has made very dangerous enemies. Shredder said. Those turtles. Azula mused. But there's only 4 of them. Do not underestimate them. Shredder told her. Even without the Avatar's aid, they are fully capable of bringing down your empire. They have brought down many before, with much more advanced power. So what do you want then? Mai asked. We share common enemies. Shredder replied. And what's the old saying? Ah yes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. You wish to ally yourself with us. Azula guessed. That is correct, dear princess. We wield unimaginable power, and great advancements in technology. We will help you in your quest to conquer this backwater world, and in return, you will help us to eliminate those turtles. I believe that sounds fair, yes. Azula looked towards Mai and Ty Lee before looking down in thought. She looked to him with an answer. Alright, I agree to your alliance. Excellent, Shredder said as he turned around. However, if we are going to be working together, I believe a name would be in order. Azula said. We are the Foot. I am its master, Oroku Sake. I am the Shredder. And this is the end of part 2 of this what if. I hope you guys like it. Don't really leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.